Naming every person who did something horrifyingly wicked is quite impossible. The world is filled with such, yet only a few managed to achieve notoriety that the evil things they did got to a level of unforgettable crimes. One person, however, got into the limelight tagged as a serial killer that dominated as one of the US's most prolific and mysterious murderers of the 70s, Ted Bundy. Nobody could tell who he really was and why he was doing what he was doing. In just half a decade, Bundy murdered countless women. The modus operandi? As a serial killer, Bundy used specific tactics to lure and kill women. His most remarkable tactic is the use of a sling. He would carry lots of heavy books with one hand while seemingly struggling to get into his yellow Volkswagen Beetle. Looking at him, he seemed like a guy going through a rough time. Once a woman would come to help him, he would bash her head in with a crowbar and kidnap her. He never kept a woman for long. He would dump the body all in the night after raping and killing them, grateful to all the witnesses. As a result of connecting the dots and creating a profile, the police believed a serial killer was responsible for the acts. Nobody would even think twice that a person of such character like Ted Bundy would be considered a suspect. The almost reckless nature of the crimes, you would really wonder how he could get away with all the witnesses that kept giving the facial sketch which looked like him. Simple. Just judge a book by its cover type of strategy. Bundy remained visible to law enforcement for years, working in politics as an assistant director of the Seattle Crime Prevention Advisory Commission. He also worked at the Department of Emergency Services. Ironically, he often discussed the widespread occurrence of missing women and developed new methods on how to find them before it was too late. He even wrote a paper on rape prevention. Such an expert, yeah? All these made him an unlikely candidate for a serial killer in the eyes of the law. As a result, he was able to remain elusive for a long time. Most of Bundy's crimes were committed without a single witness around, but in some cases, where he was getting more proactive in his efforts to kill, a few people did see, who in turn flooded sketches of a man that looked identical to Bundy, but he was just overlooked. Everything he has, and everything everyone knows about him combined, exempted him as a suspect. Even the sling and the beetle he had did not make police think otherwise. But there came a time that Bundy started to feel the heat, like things were going against him. So he accepted an offer of studying at the University of Utah Law School in August 1974. He wasted no time getting as far away as possible. Little did he know that it was the turning point of his hidden wickedness. Bundy seemed to lay low for a month, since his identity was becoming easily identifiable by his signature moves. It was not long before he began kidnapping and killing again. In the space of 2 months, he had killed numerous girls, one of which was the daughter of the Salt Lake City police chief. That was the beginning of a new drive to search for a dangerous serial killer. The most helpful tip was yet to speak: Bundy's ex-girlfriend, Elizabeth Cluffer. The two had kept in touch when Bundy was still living in Washington state. And with all the news coming out about the murderer and the sketches of the potential suspect, she was startled when she noticed the resemblance to her ex-boyfriend, Theodore Bundy. Aside from the Volkswagen Beetle, he also kept crutches and slings in his home that she never understood why. With the suspicion in hand, Elizabeth called the King County Police Department and the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Department. She told them about her thoughts regarding Bundy with a heavy heart, since they'd been a family together, with Bundy acting as a father to her daughter from a previous relationship. By 1975, Bundy was in Colorado playing his moves across the state, claiming more lives. Washington cops were still having difficulty figuring out the case. Everything changed with the introduction of the computer. Yes, what we consider primitive nowadays was once the main instrument for the long-awaited answer to the question, who is the serial killer? Through this machine, they could input data into the system and compare it to the existing data. 1,000 entries were combined through to find names that matched the crime. One of the names was Bundy's. This was a breakthrough, but not helpful enough to locate other crimes done in other states or elsewhere. The painful truth is that they neglected to identify a suspect that had already been identified years before computers were introduced. Their assumption was that this well-groomed, seemingly upstanding citizen could not possibly be the killer. He was able to avoid being caught because he acted faster than the policeman, which meant that many more women would lose lives due to the inability of the people who were responsible for their safety. While Bundy was driving around a neighborhood in suburban Salt Lake City, he was pulled over by a cop for looking suspicious. His car was searched, and everything they saw were the things they expected from a killer, such as being faced with a ski mask, trash bags, handcuffs, a crowbar, rope, and an ice pick. The Salt Lake City Police Department launched an investigation into Bundy, but failed to find any evidence linking him to any crimes. Freaked out, Bundy sold his yellow Beetle, which had been sequestered by the cops eventually, where DNA evidence that raised questions were found. With these, they started to connect him to the actual crimes. He had been tried for an aggravated kidnapping and attempted criminal assault. But Lucky Bundy got his parents to bail him out. While on bail, Bundy lived with Elizabeth like nothing was wrong. He later admitted that the money used for his bail was a result of many of his mother's friends' help. The cops were positive that they had the serial killer and wanted to pursue the case further, but needed to allow his case for kidnapping and assault to happen first. The case against Bundy sentenced him to 1 to 15 years in prison. While locked up, he was charged with only a single murder among the numerous murders he committed. Bundy was becoming more desperate. It weighed heavily on his mind that the death penalty might be imposed. This thought kept him awake at night. He said he was not ready to die, though he deserved the most extreme punishment of the society. In the following case against him, he had defended himself. As a result of this decision, he was not restrained in any way. He asked to use the library, claiming he needed to prepare for his defense. While he was there, he managed to escape, and it took another 6 days for them to recover him. He spent his 6 days out in the wilderness of the Aspen Mountains alone. Bundy knew that the case against him was weak, yet they would nail him for the murder, and surely more cases were destined to follow. He had to act fast. As soon as he got the floor plan of the jail, he saved some smuggled money and bought a hacksaw before escaping into the apartment upstairs, where he changed and walked out. Guess what? It worked. By stealing and driving multiple cars across the country, he quickly made it from Chicago to Atlanta and on to Florida. Along the way, he had stolen other people's wallets and other items just to make sure that he was financially equipped. Bundy could have taken his situation as a learning point and left well enough alone, but no, he decided otherwise. In 1978, Bundy started killing again in Florida. He strangled, assaulted, and beat a series of women in just 15 minutes at Florida State University. He was not finished yet. He left an apartment building where he nearly killed another, but left her alive with serious skull and jaw fractures. In his escape, he forgot behind a pantyhose mask, which was his biggest mistake. The cops were furiously hunting Bundy the serial killer. One day, he was pulled over and attempted to make a run for it, but he was apprehended in the end by a cop who didn't even know that he had caught one of America's worst of the worst criminals. Now, Bundy's reign of terror came to an end. He then confessed to the murder of 30 women, which he believed to be an undercount. However, considering the length of time he had spent killing, Bundy was executed in the electric chair on January the 24th, 1989. After languishing for more than 10 years in a Florida prison, he made a statement which everyone could ever remember. His final words before the flip of the switch were, "I would like you to give my love to my family and friends. The reign of Ted Bundy, one of America's most deadly criminals, had come to a brutal end." What do you think of our video today? Let us know.